All right, so we are at 8:30, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. And a very warm welcome to everyone. My name is Tara Healey. I'm the founder and director of Mind the Moment, the mindfulness program of Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare and Tufts Health Plan. Welcome to our Thursday morning gathering. And this session is recorded and is available on our YouTube channel, which is called Mind the Moment. And we have an opportunity at the end. Usually we save 10 minutes or so for Q&A or sharing resources or just, sharing about your practice, any thoughts you have. And this is a fully guided practice. It's about 12 to 14 minutes in length, and there are periods of silence throughout. And I feel like it's worth mentioning every time that part of what makes this practice so challenging is that our minds are busy. And when we remove all of the typical distractions of our lives and we sit with ourselves in this way without any distraction, it leaves room to really see just how busy the mind always is anyway when we're walking around in our daily life. And actually the research says about 50% of the time that we're awake we are mind wandering. I'm surprised it's not a little bit higher than that, but about 50% of our waking hours. And so it is what makes practice difficult. The other thing is there is just a long-standing misconception that when we set aside time as we are to practice meditation, and in part, what meditation is the intentional regulation of your attention. And what that does is just strengthen concentration and focus. It helps to steady the mind, and mindfulness just does its job better on a steady platform. So that's why we do this, but also to see our mental habit patterns more clearly. And it's always good news, it's so those habit patterns that serve us and those mental habit patterns that have not been serving us well, we get to see them with clarity. But it is what makes meditation challenging is being with the busyness and having an expectation that it shouldn't be busy or we shouldn't be thinking. So anyway, I hope that was a little more than I anticipated saying, but I think it's worthwhile just talking about that misconception. So the idea is that the meditation practice we're doing, you can think of it as Dr. Amishi Jha, who's partnered with us a lot, often says they're like mental push-ups. And so you're strengthening the capacity of the mind to be awake and aware in day-to-day life. So sort of you're off the cushion, so to speak, and bringing this steadiness into your day-to-day life and noticing how it helps or not. Actually, it's an empirical practice that we get to test for ourselves. And so with that, let's go ahead and move into practice. So you can do this standing, you could do it seated, you can do it lying down, whatever feels like it's going to serve you best. And your eyes can be open or closed. And if they're open, just gaze down a little to help remove peripheral distraction. And begin with a couple deep breaths on your own, making your exhalation longer than your inhalation. And just allowing a settling, an arrival, bringing full awareness to the whole body, aware of the points of contact, whether it's the soles of the feet or all along the back of the body. Maintaining a spine that is straight but not stiff. And holding yourself upright. And receiving the physical sensations in your body, whatever they may be, point of contact or pulsing, a vibration, temperature, tingling. Know what's the raw data, as if you are a scientist, but you're also the subject, bringing an attitude of the way you would if you were to look through a microscope. If you were to look through a microscope, you would be curious, open, and receptive. And that's the attitude we bring to ourselves in practice. And the beauty is we don't have to go looking for something. We're simply in a receptive mode. And let's expand awareness to include sound that might be happening in the room or outside of the room that you're in, just simply receiving. And bringing awareness back into the body. And let's move through regions of the body swiftly and just receiving. So, starting at the feet, receiving sensations or noticing lack of sensations. We're starting at the feet, moving up to the lower legs, including the knees, sweeping over the thighs and hips, up the torso, to the shoulders and down both arms, including your hands, coming back to the neck, up over the back of the head, sides and top of the head, and sweeping down over the face. And so seeing if you can soften the eyes, the jaw, the tongue and mouth, just to the degree that you can. Again, releasing any holding or taking a moment to go to any other areas of the body that might be calling for attention and just receiving. And And finally, looking for an anchor for the wandering mind, something that we can return to again and again. Each time we notice that a thought has slipped in, and just naming it, thinking, or more specifically, planning or worry or joy or whatever. So it's a thought slips in unnoticed. We then notice it, ah, label, soften the body, and return to your anchor. So that could be breath sensation anywhere in the body you notice it, the rise and fall of the abdomen, chest, air entering and leaving the nostrils, any of those areas, or the whole carriage of the body moving, or the hands placed on the top of the thighs, the point of contact, the feeling of that point of contact could be your anchor. You can also use sound. So for the remainder of the practice, see what might work as an anchor, something you'd return to. These are like the mental push-ups, just repeating over and over again. A thought slips in, we label, we soften, we return. And noticing where the mind is. And releasing, letting go of the memory or the planning, softening the body and returning. Noticing where the mind is. And as we bring this meditation to a close, may we be peaceful and at ease. May our heart be soft and open. May we be safe and protected, and our body healthy and strong. And may whatever benefit comes of our practice be of use to all beings everywhere. So, taking a moment, if the eyes were closed, open the eyes, do a little bit of a stretch, and just reorient to the room you're in. And so we have some time for Q&A and sharing resources, so books or apps or podcasts that you've been listening to lately that have inspired you in some way, been helpful to you. And of course, anything at all, any questions about your practice or comments about your practice. So feel free for anybody that joined late to go ahead and open the chat and go to the drop-down menu and select everyone. And yeah, so any thoughts or observations? I know there's a really good, and I haven't listened to the whole thing yet, podcast with Dan Harris and a nun, a Buddhist nun. Her name is Aya Anandabodhi. And if you go to the 10% Happier podcast, you would see that name, Aya Anandabodhi. She's really good. I have sat many retreats with her over the years, and I had just started listening to that conversation and got interrupted. So at some point, I will go back to it. But she is really just remarkable, kind, wise, beautiful person. And so that would definitely be worth listening to. And for anybody that joined late, you'll see in the chat, I have put the link in for the Tuesday sessions. And next week on Tuesday, there's a special guest, Enrique. He does a lot of work with teens. So you can really feel free to share that. We're trying to increase our attendance on Tuesdays. I think, it's just a matter of really getting the word out. A while ago, we changed the time from 8:30 to a noontime session. Oh, thanks, Beatrice. Yeah, I always look forward to Wednesday and Thursdays and starting my day with all of you. It's a good way. It's a good way to start the day. So, any Heather, my mind was very busy and I noticed a slight tightness. All is unusual. I think I need to spend more time in curiosity, the ebb and flow of life in our minds, I suppose. Yes, Heather, yeah, and I think, one of the things that has always been helpful to me is this idea of we never know from day to day like what kind of practice we're going to have, but it's all included. And so even when things are happening that might not be so typical, it's just you keep backing in and allowing and receiving, whatever is showing up. And the other thing that I tend to do too is like I can see with certain body sensations or even thoughts that there'll be a contraction in my body that I'm not aware of. And then when I start to see that, just soften that contraction and just receive. So, and Lynn, some days are much easier. Yeah, I'm thankfully, yeah, right. And so I think with both of these comments, some days are easy, some days are hard. And it can be, where you might be feeling great and you sit down and you unexpectedly have a practice that is challenging. And it's all just what it is, that the idea of seeing, receiving, and ultimately part of what we're learning is the nature of change, that everything is impermanent. And I've always taken comfort in that idea that everything, every thought, every sensation, it's transient. And so we're learning, especially with the difficult ones, to gain some balance so that when things are hard, we're not so thrown off because we are developing the capacity to work with it in this particular way. Um, yeah, I often suggest to people to start with an itch or a muscle cramp when you're practicing and don't scratch the itch or don't knead out that muscle cramp. Whatever your attention is being pulled to when it's pulled off of your anchor, so whether it's a sound or an itch or a cramp, you don't have to argue with it. You just let your attention leave the primary anchor and go to that sensation. So if it's an itch, this is a really good way to practice. I know I've said this before, but it's, repetition is so valuable in this practice. You go to the area of the itch and you don't scratch it. And you'll see that whether or not you scratch it, it's going to go away because that is its nature. And the same with a muscle cramp. On retreat, I've had my share of muscle cramps. And some of them are, they really hurt. And so I just knead them out so I can, or shake or whatever I need to do. But also practice with, if it's not too intense, can I just receive the sensation of the cramp? It's unpleasant, right? Because every thought, emotion, body, sensation has a tone of pleasant or unpleasant. And there's neutral in there too, where some are just you don't notice because but oftentimes there's some degree of pleasant or unpleasant. So with the unpleasant, it's just unpleasant. And we still just kind of receive, and you'll see that too is moving. And when we understand that through practice at deeper and deeper levels, it brings more of an ease to life when things are difficult, but it fortifies us to fully show up for them. So it's not a denial, and it's resistance when things are unpleasant is natural, but you see the resistance and you just back into that. Like, oh, unpleasant sensation, wanting to push it away. Oh, wanting to push it away is there. Okay, can I see that? So I hope that was helpful. Teresa, sharing this one line from Mary Oliver. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life, along with practices, quote, can center me. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you, Teresa. And I would say, I would end by just saying that that the time we spend in practice is valuable and important. And the idea is that we are taking what we're cultivating and learning about our mental habit patterns, what we're learning about impermanence and change. We're taking that out into the service of our world, into ultimately really the service of each other. The more aware I am of my mental habit patterns, of things I contract around, the more I see the impermanent nature of everything, the richer my life feels, and the more aligned I can be with my own values. And I don't always get it right. And then we that's I think in part why compassion and self-kindness are built, they're inherent in practice as well. So, maybe our next practice, which is Wednesday, I will do a loving kindness session. So the whole practice will be on loving kindness. So with that, if anybody else has any final thoughts or observations or questions, please go ahead and put that in the chat. But otherwise, have a wonderful day and soon to be weekend. And we'll see you on Wednesday. Okay, everybody, take care. Bye.